All right, take a few seconds, get back to your seat. Good morning, good morning. Where were you all last week? I showed up and there was no one here. How awesome is it that we had 160 of you committing to serve either last Sunday, yesterday. We had people committed to serve and unleashed generosity on our community. I could not be more proud of this church responding and stepping up, that we were no longer just going to come here and do church, but that we were going to go out and we were going to be the church. And I am so excited to see, exactly, applaud yourselves for that. The big thing for this is I want it to be contagious. I don't want it to just be stuck here and for a few weeks, but it to become something that the church here, especially Hope Church, becomes a church of generosity, a church that looks for opportunities to be generous. If you are a guest, hi, welcome. My name is Dan. I'm the teaching pastor here, and get this opportunity to open up God's Word. And you may be hearing this be rich thing. Maybe you've seen something outside or whatever, and you don't know what it's about. Let me tell you what it's about. As I said, we want to be generous. We want to be generous as a church, and we're looking at different ways of doing it. The first week, we talked about giving generously. You'll hear more about that next week. Next, we talked about serving generously, and we were so committed to it that we wanted to cancel services just to encourage us to go out and serve. And today we're going to talk about loving generously. All of these are founded and based out of one verse that we see in the New Testament, or a couple of verses out of the New Testament of the Bible, in which Paul, the author, says this to a young man, Timothy, who he's preparing for ministry. He tells Timothy, "Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment." And he continues on and says, "Command them," the rich people that he was just talking about, "to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life." First, he says these rich people. And we said 2 weeks ago, you may not feel rich today. You may not. But in reality, comparing what the average American and even below average American earns compared to the rest of the world, you are still rich. You still have possessions, but you don't just have possessions. You have gifts. You have abilities. You have experiences. You have all these things that make you rich. I don't know how many of you thought about how rich you are by the fact you can even read what is on the screen right now. You are rich. You can read. You came here in a car. You are rich. You have a car. You have clothes on your body. You are rich. And Paul says, you know what? They need to take that and they need to do good things with it. They need to do good works to serve others as they are able. And this is a lifestyle here. Be rich in good deeds. You do speak English. You can read. You may even have one of those things called a savings account and have money in it. And the reality is all these are things that we can choose to use to be rich and to be generous. Last week, as I said, if you had the opportunity to watch my online service, I said the reason that we want to serve and the reason we want to be generous is because we want to treat people with goodness because Jesus loves them, just like he loves us. If we love him, we better love who he loves. I used an illustration. I said when I got married, there were people that were very near and dear to my wife that automatically, because I loved her, I wanted to like them and to love them just like her. It came with it because I knew they were important to her, and it is the same. Oh, how much it is the same with Jesus. If we love him, that we would love those he loves, and he loves everyone, even those we may not like at all. Today we're going to talk about loving generously. And I want to start by reminding you of something. You know and have heard the story of the Good Samaritan out of Scripture, that Jesus taught the story of the Good Samaritan. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it today, but I will tell you this, that story has had such an impact over all of these years, even to those who don't believe in Jesus or the Bible or whatever, that some nations, some cities, some states, including Rhode Island, have established what we call a Good Samaritan law. Now, when you hear Good Samaritan law, maybe you're wondering what that's about. Maybe you think that the Good Samaritan law is something that says if you see somebody who's in trouble, by law, you must help them. Did you know that that's actually a small percentage of what Good Samaritan laws are? The bigger percentage of what the Good Samaritan law is to protect a person who goes to help somebody from any potential of lawsuit and liability for them trying to help them. It's crazy that something called the Good Samaritan law that you'd think would say, hey, we should be taking care of each other and looking out for people that are hurting and all this. It's sad in this day and age that the Good Samaritan law actually means we need to protect you in case you decide to do that, because if something goes wrong, someone may try to sue you back. That's what a Good Samaritan law is. I think our heart and desire is that a Good Samaritan law is in place to really encourage us to look out for our fellow man. And it's established in really good things, because I think a lot of us like to think that basically every human being has some good in them somewhere. You may have to dig a little bit. And for some people, maybe it's a little bit more evident, but we like to think that people are civil, and if they see somebody who's hurting, or if I'm hurting, we just know everyone's going to take care of us. And the reality is, that's not so. Unfortunately, it's not true, and that's why these Good Samaritan laws have to be established. We'd like to think that if someone is hurt, in danger, wounded, that people will help, and the reality is they aren't. You know how I know this is even more of a reality than maybe something like somebody who's bleeding all over the place or being robbed? I know this is deeper because there are people 20 minutes from here who do not have a home, who don't know where their meals are coming from in Hartford. And we have had to establish systems with the government and even churches to take care of them because we're not taking care of them. And it's so easy for us to say, well, hey, we have a system to take care of them. 4,000, by the way. Every day, it's roughly about 4,000 people that are homeless in Hartford. In East Hampton, there's roughly about 10, maybe a dozen homeless right here in East Hampton. And it's easy for us to say, well, we already have a system in place to take care of them. We have someone who will take care of it, not me. It doesn't bother. I don't need to. I can step aside and go about my life and let someone else take care of them. And that is what I'm talking about. There are still so many needs and problems around us that we could get involved with, but we don't. We expect somebody else to do it. And honestly, that's the easy way out. It's easy to depend on somebody else to do it. Let me tell you this. The early church in Acts, and I know we look at the early church as this very idealistic thing. It was perfect, and it seemed like it was perfect, and it had everything going right. I'll say this, that the early church took upon themselves a high emphasis that we should be taking care of widows and orphans. And the reason for that wasn't just so that the church could be really cool and everyone thinks they're great. It's because there was no system to take care of them. None. And the church said, we feel a responsibility. It's all on us. We need to take care of them. We need to step up. We need to look out for those that everyone else is overlooking and throwing off to the side, and they're human garbage to the government. We'll be the ones to take care of them. And that is loving generously. That is love in action through service and keeping our eyes open. And in fact, that's my big idea this morning. My big idea is this, that to meet a need, you've got to see the need. To meet a need, you've got to see the need. It is easy for us every day to go about our business, to go about walking to work or driving to work, or even the people that we pass walking into our workplaces or going to school or going to a store, and there's needs around us, and we oftentimes don't see them at all. Why? Because we just go through the motions. I don't think you're a horrible person, and believe me, I'm guilty of the exact same thing, that I often will walk by people in need. I'll just walk by them because I'm on my way to my job. Does this remind you of that story of the Good Samaritan, those of you that know it here? Because there were two individuals who walked by a man in need. And they just walked on by. They were doing their job. It's not my place. I'll let somebody else take care of them. Well, somebody else did. That was the Samaritan, somebody who was hated and cursed. To meet a person's need, a need of love and value, we have to see it. Our eyes have to be open. This past year, I became really aware of this principle that they teach in the military and FBI and so on. And it's this thing called situational awareness. Actually, the first time I heard this was me listening to some mixed martial arts guy, and he's talking about you have to have situational awareness. So now, whenever I go someplace, I have situational awareness. I'm so aware of everything that's going on. I know who's looking, that they may start a fight or something and all that. I have to do it here every week. But it was interesting for me to think about this thing of situational awareness, that they will train the FBI and the military that when you walk into a situation, whatever it is, you're taking your kid to a recital, you are aware. Where's the exits? Is there anything that you see that could be a danger? And they are locked in this phase that their mind is engaged with where they are. You probably came in here today and were not really thinking a whole lot about where you are. Maybe some of you were, but that would be a lack of situational awareness. I bring up situational awareness because we need to have situational awareness every day as we walk around to see needs that people have around us, that we can love them out of generosity, that we have spiritual awareness of what's going on. I'm going to share just two verses with you today. Two that are really impactful for me and a good reminder for me, especially the first one, because it's one of those that my father and my grandmother quoted every day of my life to me. And the first one we find out of the book of James. And James was Jesus, his brother. James says this. He says, if anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. If anyone knows the good that they should do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them. In other words, you can't play ignorant. If you know the right thing to do, don't just walk by and blow it off and think someone else will do it, or hey, we got a system to do that. Do it. If you don't, it's basically telling God, I don't care. I'm going to do whatever I want. I don't care what you want me to do. Another way that this could be interpreted when you look at the original language is, if anyone who knows how to do what is good. Anyone who knows how to do what is good. Now, I think that all of us know how to do good in certain situations. I think all of us know how to do good when we hear of suffering in Haiti and Venezuela. We know we can go to a place and we can send money or get in with an organization that's going to do something good. We know how to do good in something like that. We also know how to do good when we hear of people being taken advantage of by maybe another person or a company or a system. We know how we can get involved. Once again, an organization. Maybe we get involved personally with the person to try to help them back up and get out of a bad situation where they're being taken advantage of. We also know what to do when we know a person is in an abusive situation. That there are things that we can do, people we can contact, whether law enforcement or whatever it is, to get involved, to get the person out of the situation. So we're great at knowing what to do that is good and hopefully doing it if it's those situations. But we also know how to do good in other situations. We know how to do good when we're in a store one day and we hear a mom breaking down because her 2-year-old is throwing tangent number 20 throwing themselves on the floor, knocking things off the shelves, breaking them, screaming so loud they can hear it in the next state. That's the bad situation. You see a mother there broken and crying, and we know what to do there, and we walk on by, and we don't bother. That's her problem, her situation. We also know how to do good when someone is standing in the lobby of our very own church, which we are great at welcoming, and we see that person stand there alone. And they're still standing there alone. And they're still standing there alone. And no one is talking to them. And we see it out of the corner of our eye, and we keep thinking about it. Maybe I should do something. Maybe I should do something. My friends are here. Another person I know is here. Whatever it is. And we get so distracted. We don't do what is good in that situation. And an opportunity to love generously. What about this? We know how to love or to do good when someone walks into a performance that we're at. Maybe we're at our kids' recital or their play or whatever. Every seat is taken. And a mother or father walks in late, and we know what we could do in that moment, but we say, this seat is my seat. I came here early. You know what I had to endure to get this seat? I have been holding the bathroom for an hour and a half because I'm not going to lose my seat. And we know the good to do, but we don't do it. We don't do it. We also know how to do good when someone has a flat tire. We drive, we see them, and we're even sitting at a stoplight. We see them right there, and we're running early to work. We even stopped at Dunkin'. We still have time to get to work, and we know the good that we can do because we know how to change a tire. I'm not saying this for everybody. We know how to change a tire, and we hit the gas and drive on by. Someone else will take care of them. They probably have Geico. They'll take care of it. Roadside assistance. See, this is what I'm talking about. Those that know to do good and don't do it, to them it is sin. God's given you this opportunity to be generous. How often did Jesus stop in the middle of what he was doing and focus on somebody that nobody else was? He chose to love them generously. Now, some of you may say, I don't have much to give people. I don't have a lot of money or possessions. I don't have a lot of skills. You have something, though. God did not make you somebody who is void of any ability. He's given you something, even as I said earlier, even if it's the ability to read. In 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 10 through 11, Peter, the author, says this: each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides. And he ends saying this, so that in all things, what's the whole reason for this? Is it the feel-good moment? Is it to pat ourselves on the back? No. In all things, God may be praised through Jesus Christ. We talked about this 2 weeks ago. Why do we do good deeds? It's not so we get that feel-good moment. That's great that comes. More importantly, it's to cause worship services breaking out all around us. That people see and hear why we're doing what we're doing, and they're like, that is awesome. You serve a good God. That's cool. I wonder if I can have that relationship with them. The cause of our service and what God has given you, you can use it. Whatever you have, use it. It may seem small. Use it. And use it as though it is God himself doing it because he gave it to you. If you can read, have you ever thought about maybe helping those who can't read? Maybe people who are new immigrants to our country. I know my mother, she just turned 80 last Sunday. She still from time to time will go and help out at a library with new immigrants who just are trying to learn English. Because she's a native. She speaks the language. She can teach. You can too. Are you looking for ways to use what you have? We should be good stewards of what God has given us. And that term steward there is one that oftentimes when I think about being a good steward, it normally means that I should protect and take care of all my stuff so that it looks brand new. If I'm going to be a good steward of my car, I'm always going to clean it. I'm always going to wash it. I got to make sure this thing is pristine and my children are not going to, I'm going to have Scotch-Brite on everything so their sippy cups are not spilling on my seats. Okay? That's a good steward. But that's part of being a good steward. The other part of being a good steward is God has given me to this. I want to use this thing as much as possible, and we're going to blow the wheels off this thing. Just serving him. So how are you stewarding what God has given you? I remember when I first started youth ministry, I play guitar. I love guitar. I played it for years, and I had finally bought my first guitar with my own money. I love this thing. It was beautiful. And I had it at youth group, and I was playing and so on, and we got done our time, and I'm hanging out with some students, and all of a sudden I hear a noise. Somebody is playing my guitar, and they're playing it with much vigor. It wasn't beautiful. And I look over, and there's some students there hammering on my brand new beautiful guitar, playing as best as they could, probably Stairway to Heaven like every other person who's ever learned to play guitar, just trying their best to play. And in that moment, I had a point where I had to decide, is it okay that they're doing that? Because God gave that to me. I want to protect it. Or is it okay for me to use that as an opportunity to bless them, to let them play it? You know what? God gave it to me. Use it. Let's talk. Let's get together and play guitar. Being a good steward isn't just about protecting things. It's about using what he's given you and using it as best as you can. All of us need to do a self-inventory. Think about ourselves and what God has given us that we can use, just as that verse said out of 1 Peter, that we can use it as though it is the very words of God. If we can speak as though it's the very words of God, because he's given it to you. And we need to evaluate ourselves. Maybe we can read. Maybe we can color. We had some people last week, some of you, who colored with some of the residents at some of the homes we visited. I think most of us can color. I can. I still go outside the lines. But you can color and love a person generously. Maybe you know English. Maybe you have a card that you can use. Whatever it is, here's my challenge. I want you to act for worship this week. I want you to act for worship. Do actions for worship. And here's how we're going to do this week. Here's how we're going to love generously and act so that it causes worship, people to praise the God that we're serving because of what he's given to us. This week, I want you to have eyes open, and I want you to have hands ready as you go about your week, even as you leave this building. Well, maybe even before you leave the building, just a heads up. I want you to practice impromptu acts of kindness this week. Impromptu acts of kindness, things spur of the moment. You see somebody who has a need, you are situationally aware, you see it, you're looking for it, and you do it. You don't rationalize why you can't do it. You take the effort in doing it. Maybe this is buying someone's meal or groceries or Starbucks for them. You're in the line in front of them, and you offer to pay for that. You're at a restaurant, a sit-down restaurant. I've done this. I love doing this. It freaks people out. But from time to time, I'll just pay for someone else's table. I make sure that they only get a little bit of food. But kidding. I just pay for it. I don't even seek the recognition. I just leave before they even get told. And there's something that gives me joy about that. I met a need. I blessed a person out of what God gave me and allowed me to do. Maybe you do that. Maybe you make your neighbor dinner. You call them early or you see them and you're like, don't make dinner tonight. We're making it for you. Just do something with what you're able to do. Maybe it's you surprise somebody with a gift card or anonymous check. You know there's a financial need. You know that there's some things that they could use, and you just buy it for them. I'm going to speak for all the moms here. Surprise some of the moms with a massage envy card, okay? Whatever it is. Something that gets them a spa or relaxation, whatever it is, let them have a day off. And do it without even seeking credit. If you can, do it anonymously. I want you to think about raking a yard or cleaning gutters. Do it when they're at work. They'll be freaked out. It'll be awesome. They'll call the cops. Somebody stole my leaves. Or the cops will be coming by, seeing you in their gutters and know you're breaking in. I'm kidding. Freak them out. Impromptu acts of kindness this week. Whatever it may be that you see, maybe it's not that. I want you to find what people are complaining about and do something about it. Those of you that live in Colchester like I do, Facebook group for Colchester, at least once a week is a complaint about shopping carts. The shopping carts, it's Stop and Shop that no one puts back. You want to freak out our town? Take 3 of them and put them away. Or stay there for 30 minutes and just put them all away. People are going to complain about it. East Hampton, you may have that problem. I know people talking about their dogs doing their business all on Airline Trail. Maybe for you, it's going around with the bag and cleaning up some poop. Okay? Whatever it is that people are complaining about, let's do something about it this week. Not seeking recognition, doing it simply because God gave us the ability to do it. Let's find what people are complaining about and do it. I want you to put something in a food collection. You see, I know Big Y has one right in the front. And if you forget, after you wring out all your food, and then you see it as you're walking out, hey, they're collecting food for the holiday. Walk back in and buy something to put in it. Is it an inconvenience? Possibly. But I want to freak out our towns with our generosity. And then finally, stop and encourage somebody. Stop and encourage the people you don't think about, the cashier, the salesperson, the people that just get looked over all the time. Find a way to love them generously in words. I want to encourage you to walk into situations, not walk around them or walk out this week. Walk into them and love people generously with what God has given you. If you see something, act and don't think. Just do it. Because if you think, you're going to try and rationalize your way out of it. Give you this final story. At Southwestern Seminary, which is in Texas, there were some students who had been studying the New Testament for the whole semester. And their teacher told them, your final exam next week is going to be on the Good Samaritan. Know every single thing that you can about the Good Samaritan. Just do it. So, sure enough, they start studying. They're studying all their original languages and everything they can learn about the Good Samaritan. And they go to their exam, and they get to the classroom, and there's a sign on the door that says, it's been moved across campus. Okay, so they get their notes, and as they're walking across campus, they're reading their notes. They're going through their flashcards, studying the Good Samaritan, just trying to learn as much as they can so they will pass this final exam. And as they're doing it, they're passing this little old lady who has a flat tire, and she's frustrated as anything. And they just keep walking. All of them, all 35 students, walk by and get to the classroom, and they sit down studying their notes. The teacher walks in and says, okay, you all ready for your exam? And they say, yes. And he says, guess what? You all failed. They're like, what? Haha, funny joke. No, you all failed. They're like, how did we all fail? We haven't even taken anything yet. He then motions to the door, and then walks the little old lady that they all walked by. He said, if you can't help her, you haven't learned the Good Samaritan. I hope you've learned the Good Samaritan this week and beyond. Let's pray. God, help us to be situationally aware of what is going on around us, that we would look for opportunities to love with what you've given us, Lord, even in the most sometimes small ways. Even if it's just an encouraging word to somebody, that you would put those opportunities before us and we can't miss them, that we would do our best. Lord, I ask for all of us here to unleash generosity, not to be passerby or to just sit around and wait for everyone else's great stories, that you would give us great stories because we chose to be rich. And we ask this in your name. Amen.